Hello! With an announcement of the original Ocarina of Time remake for the Switch 2, and after subsequently seeing the trailer, I wanted to talk about it. It really got me thinking about the last Ocarina of Time remake for 3DS and what this means for the Switch 2. Before we begin, I'm going to ask you to subscribe, and thank you for watching. In March of 2011, the Nintendo 3DS was released after long-awaited anticipation. The sequel to the, at the time, second highest selling console in the world. Everyone and their grandmother had a Nintendo DS, and I'm not joking about that either. The DSi XL was literally advertised to the elderly with games like Brain Age and featured a jumbo stylus. The 3DS featured an analog stick circle pad. Somehow in their minds this was comparable to the PS Vita analog sticks, which, were actual analog sticks. Bigger screens, and the main gimmick, adjustable stereoscopic 3D. Now obviously this was the biggest trend at the time, which died out pretty quick. Like, remember the 3D TVs? Those were not around for long. But they were pushed and sold, and now they're probably all in the landfill with all those copies of E.T. The 3DS launched to lukewarm success at first, with interest slowly fading with time went on. Nobody was interested in a Nintendo handheld if it didn't have any first-party Nintendo-made exclusives. It launched with the games shown on screen. Nintendogs and Cats was an anticipated sequel and was received poorly because people claimed it was just a poor remake. I wasn't able to find more than this, and I was never really interested in it as a kid. I also don't own it, so I can't really play it. Pilot Wings Resort was really the only game on launch that appealed to 7-year-old me, which is how old I was at the time of launch, but I wouldn't get a 3DS for a while myself. Over the next few months, the game's catalog was a little stagnant. Nintendo really needed people to buy this console after the underwhelming reception of the console on launch, especially being the successor to the most successful handheld console on the planet. So Nintendo did the most tried and true method: nostalgia bait people. Now, the modern movie industry is very guilty of this with remakes after remakes. We're on a remake of Moana, the animated movie that came out 10 years ago. But this was before remake craze, and I would argue that this started it in the gaming industry. But Nintendo decided to make remakes/remasters of Star Fox 64 and Ocarina of Time. Now, this is admittedly why my brother and I wanted a 3DS as kids. We both grew up playing Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask on the Wii Virtual Console with our dad. These were, by all rights, commercial successes, skyrocketing the 3DS sales basically overnight. Sales of the console went from 97,000 units sold in May to 147,000 in June, with the release of Ocarina of Time 3D. That's a 47% increase in sales, with Star Fox 3D, the Star Fox 64 3DS remake, coming in September. This was while people were still anticipating the release of Mario Kart 7 around Christmas of that year. Nintendo really needed console-selling games before the holiday, and Ocarina of Time 3D seemed to be exactly what they needed. Now, I would like to speak on the art styles of these games. The original Nintendo 64 versions of these games are obviously on dated hardware. The Nintendo 64 released in September 1996 in North America. That's 30 years ago. Older than me, with Ocarina of Time releasing in 1998 to critical acclaim, being the highest rated game of all time, and considered to be the closest a game can come to perfect in our imperfect world. Even with the 2-year difference between the release of Mario 64 as a launch title, Ocarina of Time was able to make decent graphical advancements in the character modeling and texture qualities. That being said, the art style itself is charming and nostalgic. It brings back memories of when the world seemed a little brighter. And a side effect of how old they are, the character models can certainly be uncanny and ugly. This is part of the retro charm to me. Majora's Mask in 2000 looked a lot better as well in the texture and character model departments. Now, the art style of the 3DS remake is also pretty good. It brings a modern quality to a game that definitely looks dated today, even if it's charming and retro. The 3DS remake is still distinct and quirky, and you can tell it's still the same unique art style of Ocarina of Time. It gives it a modern freshen up, and it showed the graphical capability of this small device. A big selling point of the 3DS was console-like games on the go, with them directly showing you mobile remakes of home console games, just like they did on the original DS. In September 2020, after 9 years on the market, the 3DS was discontinued. This nowadays is a pretty average lifespan for a console, but in 2011, I don't think anybody expected it to last that long. especially with my favorite little failure, the Wii U, only lasting about 5 years of hardware production. I would say the 3DS remakes of those classic home console games helped a lot in keeping the 3DS alive during its struggling early years. Fast forward 14 years to the summer of 2025. The world is drastically different, and the Switch 2 releases in a very turbulent economy. The Switch 2 immediately becomes the fastest selling console in video game history, selling over 3.5 million copies in just 4 days after release. I wasn't able to find much more info on the previous fastest selling console. No articles gave me a solid answer, and Google just wanted to feed me best selling console articles instead of fastest selling console. I found that the PS4 on launch in November of 2013 sold 1.1 million copies in the first month, which was lauded as the highest for more than a decade. If that's true, the Switch 2 sold more than triple that in just 4 days. That is insane for a console that people were apprehensive about and a lot of people still say they hate due to lack of first-party game support. And they're right, the console only launched with one first-party game, Mario Kart World, which was due. As a big Mario Kart fan, I will say we've been waiting a decade for a new entry. But that was it. A month later, Nintendo released Donkey Kong Bonanza for the Switch 2, the second first-party published game. They then released 2 spin-off games and Donkey Kong DLC for the rest of the year, as well as Switch 1 ports with enhanced features that totally make it worth spending $450 on a new console and $70 for a new physical copy of Switch 1 games. Or a pointless digital upgrade, but those were at least cheaper, I'll give them that. And I'll give them props for all the free digital upgrades for Switch 1 games that they did as well. They did do a lot of those. They then released a bunch more spin-off games this year so far, with few real first-party Switch 2 titles in sight. And then they released Tomodachi Life Living the Dream for the Switch 1. Yes, you heard right, a sequel to an IP stuck on a discontinued console got a sequel on the original Switch. This kind of makes zero sense to me. I get you can play it on a Switch 2, but aren't we trying to incentivize people to buy these things? Or at least buy more games for them? Maybe this wasn't the IP to do it. The original only sold 6.7 million copies worldwide, kind of low for a first-party Nintendo game. The Switch 2 has only sold around 48 million software units, which is low for a console that has just shy of 20 million hardware units sold. That's only a little over 2 games per person that has a Switch 2, a criminally low amount of games for a system this expensive. Funnily enough, I actually found out that the Switch 2 is being sold at a loss, which is why they discontinued their $500 Mario Kart bundle in North America. Now it's time to talk about the remakes, the whole reason I wanted to make this video. They released the original Ocarina of Time in 1998, as I mentioned, and re-released it in 2011 for a new console and a new generation. Now they're releasing it for another new console for another generation of people. Do you see what's wrong with that? My dad played Ocarina of Time as a teenager before he was 20. I played Ocarina of Time on Virtual Console and on 3DS as an actual child. 2 different generations. My dad was born in 1980 and I was born in 2004. 2 generations separated by the millennial generation. An entire generation in itself. We all played this game. So that's 3 generations of people playing this game through a remake for a future console. Same goes for Star Fox, but admittedly I've never been a huge Star Fox fan, so I've never actually played any of them, which is why I'm mostly speaking on Ocarina of Time since I grew up playing it. This was 20 years or more of this game enjoyed by different generations. This is how they get multiple generations of people to enjoy something, and that's how you manipulate them into buying it every time. This is a symptom of the modern gaming industry though. Get people to like your game, and then release a remade version of it for their children to play, and then make it again for them to play again. I absolutely think Ocarina of Time is generational, but it does not need another remake. Maybe a port, I guess, but even then, every console they've made since the Nintendo 64 has had Ocarina of Time on it in one way or another. Literally. Now, here come my real issues with the Ocarina of Time remake. Shameless cash grab and pitiful attempt to sell more Switch 2 hardware aside, it's really this, the art style. Remember how quirky, cute, and unique the art styles were for both versions of this game? I do. Now check this out. Yeah, it looks like that fucking Unreal Engine 5 fan-made demo of Ocarina of Time from like 2016 to the early 2020s. Just looks so soulless. It genuinely looks like AI slop. That's what I thought the first time I saw this. It looks like corporate shit. Where's the Nintendo style? Where's the charm? This looks like the Nvidia delusional presentation about DLSS 5. It's just so corporate and soulless. There's absolutely no charm here. And honestly, considering how cozy Nintendo and Nvidia are, and considering the Switch 2 uses custom-built Nvidia-only chips, I could totally see this being a reality. Now this section is speculation, but is this really acceptable to you? Maybe it is. But that brings me to my next point, nostalgia bait. What's better than nostalgia? Bringing you back to when your life was better, when the sky was more colorful, and when you didn't have bills to pay. You could spend all day playing a game and worrying about nothing. Well, this is bullshit because it's not the way it is at all. You want to feel that way, so you'll spend more time and thus more money on your devices. But this is exemplary of the modern gaming industry. Cash grabs out the ass. We've all grown up, and they need to grow up with us. They're so lazy now, so stagnant, they want to continue to do the bare minimum and make the most money. They've been giving us the same games for 30 years. But this time, they put a new coat of slop on it so you'll play it. Instead of innovating, trying new things, or taking any risks, companies and shareholders are only interested in the safe and easy route, the tried and true method, emotional manipulation. Remember when Nintendo were the risk takers, the ones willing to gamble it all on an outlandish idea and through sheer charm and allure make video game history? It's what they've done basically the whole time they've made games, kickstarting the home console gaming system after the ET fiasco with the NES and ROM, creating a handheld game console that was pocket-sized and didn't require 4 AA batteries. Hello, I'm editing this video. I got this information wrong. The Game Boy, the original, used 4 batteries, and the Game Gear used 6. So, yeah, that's it. Back to the... Jumping into full-fledged 3D with the Nintendo 64 and its goofy-ass little controller. Perfecting 3D on the GameCube with its also goofy-ass controller and its carrying handle. Especially the Wii and DS era. The DS, a dual-screen device that can play home console games on the go, with a compact size and actual backlit screens. The Wii, an entirely different approach to gaming. With the boom of the original Xbox and PS2 into more competitive game genres like FPS and more mature themes like GTA games, Nintendo did something different. They targeted the casual players, the families, grandparents, children, and busy parents. It had the same appeal as the DS, a casual-friendly gaming device. The Wii had channels like cable TV with pictures, weather, and news. Everybody was familiar with this system. The Wii U was, well, a flop. But they still did try something new. The off-TV play was a cool gimmick for children, but that's kind of about it. I mean, I liked the off-TV play because I was a kid with a Wii U, so I got to play my video games not on the TV. The 3DS had stereoscopic 3D, and that was also about it. They did try some cool stuff this generation, but I think they were still high off the Wii's success, so they kind of just threw stuff at the wall until it stuck. And finally, the Switch. This bad boy is the peak of innovation in consoles, in my opinion. It absolutely could have been more powerful. It was basically a Wii with upscaled graphics, and the Wii was basically a GameCube with upscaled graphics. You know why it sold so well, though, and why it was so popular. It's an actual home console on the go. The real, first, genuine one. They also sold about 155,000 of these things, so it is now the second highest selling console of all time and also the highest selling handheld console of all time. And then they made the Switch 2, which was just a Switch, but with magnetic controllers. Ooh! And an AI upscaled graphics card. But hey, at least Nintendo finally has 4K, right? Yeah, but you better buy that enhanced Switch 2 edition. This is just so lazy in my opinion. Release basically the same console with all the same games and then remake games we've been playing for 30 years. It's just so lazy. They really can't be fucked anymore to actually make an original game. 2 dedicated first-party Switch 2 games. Really makes me want to spend $500 to get one. The other original games they did make well, released on the Switch 1 for some reason. They're just nostalgia baiting, and it's working so well. Who cares about 30-year-old games with enhanced graphics? How about give us new fucking games with enhanced graphics? That's all I had to say about that. It's just so telling that we're getting the same 30-year-old games again. I love Ocarina of Time. It just doesn't need a third remake. We need original games. The Switch 2 has not sold much hardware because everyone's just playing their original Switch games on the thing. Because there are no original Switch 2 games. It's just so disappointing to see people glazing them for this. Less than the bare minimum. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe.